Welcome back to amLIVE. Our next guest is well known in media, apart from his involvement in helming TV channels such as Art Central and this station, Channel NewsAsia. Woon Tai Ho has written, produced and directed award-winning programs and documentaries.
In 2008, he published his first book, To Paint a Smile, which lent insights into the life of Singapore artist Tan Swie Hian. And now he's made his foray into fiction with a new book, something titled RIOT GREEN.
That's right. It is a story about a talented young artist drawn into a treacherous world of power play, greed and deception. So we welcome its author this morning, Woon Tai Ho, into our studio to tell us more about his first fiction book. Good morning, Tai Ho.
Good morning.
So tell me about your debut work of fiction. First of all, it is your second book, but your first fiction book, right?
Yes, correct.
But both books delve into the world of art, and clearly your love and passion for art is, pretty strong. How did it all start?
I started collecting art even before I started work, it was. I was very lucky because I have always been in news, you know that. Mm-hmm. So when I am stressed, I would actually drive to an art gallery. And,
to de-stress.
And de-stress. And then I got lost in the art world, and then since then I've been lost. So I collected modestly at the beginning. And I was lucky enough to actually, when I started collected Tan Swie Hian, and today I don't think I can afford him anymore. Right. So I have a lot of art, and a lot of it is in storage. I stopped buying art anymore, so now I write about art.
Okay, so is that how it all began? I mean, I guess your love for art, and then seeing what takes place at the galleries, understanding a bit more about how the business works, because we know this book is based on a young artist, up-and-coming artist, having to deal with the dealers, the gallery owners, a bit of greed here, a bit of this and that. I mean, so is it a true representation of the art world, or how much of it is fiction, how much of it is fact?
Okay, I'll just go back a little bit. When I was younger, I knew that most disputes, including family disputes, can be traced to money. Anyone who tells you that money doesn't matter, they're deceiving themselves, they're probably deceiving you. And it is with that in mind that I actually weave a family in a backdrop that's not supposed to matter. Money is not supposed to matter, but of course it is. So RIOT GREEN is, for me, I position RIOT GREEN as, you can say, the backdoor past to the underbelly of the art world.
Well, tell us a bit more about the creative process. I mean, did you always have this character in mind even before you actually decided, I do want to publish a book about it, I have this story in my head? Or did you sit down and say, I want to write a fiction book, how do I go about approaching it?
I wrote my first book, To Paint a Smile, and that was non-fiction, but some people say it was genre-defying. It was autobiographical, it was about another person. So, but I think fiction is the ultimate frontier for a person, for a writer. And a good piece of fiction is when you have a very strong piece of imagination. Non-fiction, the rigor of non-fiction is the rigor of research.
Right.
The test of a good piece of fiction is good imagination. And for me, a good piece of fiction is when you have very real characters. I spend a lot of time working on the characters. And once the characters are believable, that you and I can relate to, then these characters can bring you to anywhere.
Right. So are these characters entirely fictional, or again, coming back to the question of fact and fiction? How
I was trying to not answer your question. No, I think all fiction, because the characters, you refer to them, you have references to real world.
Right.
So all fiction are rooted in reality for people to believe in it. So, for instance, even wonderful books like Harry Potter, their characters are believable. So once the characters are believable, they actually transport you to even a most fantasy world, but you still believe them. So it is rooted in reality.
Yeah.
I mean, what struck me about your book, really, the strong character development is one thing, but the other thing, a key plot mover is the spirit world, and you use this to move this story along, which is pretty strong as well. Is there, you know, a reason why you decided to bring the spirit world into the book? And you know, your story also has an eclectic mix of culture and tradition embedded in it as well.
It's, of course, most fiction would be about good and bad. Yeah, I chose to have the spiritual world because the spiritual world allows me to bring you to places the real world cannot. And I think, like what I said earlier on, a good piece of fiction is a good piece of imagination. And the spiritual world allows me to tell the readers, okay, suspend your reality and follow my reality.
Right.
And with my reality, you can go to a spiritual world where everything can happen.
Well, I read somewhere that you know, a lot of hard work went into this, of course, a whole year of writing it, and you were very disciplined from the breakfast table to the writing table. It was 1 minute. Every morning you did that. And you described it as, I was a slave to the characters right to the ending. What was it like, and how do you feel now that the book is out? It's like a,
in some ways, because it's been a year. So, like you say, from the breakfast table to the writing table is a whole 1 minute, but it's called discipline. And a lot of people look at me and say, oh my gosh, it must be such a solitary, lonely world, you know. But it isn't, because the characters are always with you. And honestly, when you finish writing the book, it's kind of sad, because they're no longer with you, because for a year you were a slave to these characters. And a good fiction writer doesn't know actually where and how it's going to end. You're a slave to these real characters. The characters have to be good, and they will lead you to the end. And when each character, man or woman, old and young, when they have found their closure, and that's when you end the book. And then they're no longer with you.
were you sad to end the book? Did you want to continue?
I have another book in mind.
Yeah, we're just thinking, I mean, so will the character, will she make a reappearance? I mean, any clues as to what's coming up next or what's on your plate?
No, it won't be RIOT GREEN again.
Okay.
I think my next book is a fictionalized version of what I went through in last year. You know, because I think when all roads is blocked, there's one road that will always be open, and that's family. So I think my next book will be about, you know, family.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, Tai Ho, for coming this
you're
morning.
welcome.
Enjoyed reading your book. Tai Ho there spending time with us, telling us more about his new book. It's called RIOT GREEN, his first work of fiction. And you can grab a copy at all major bookstores.
On that note, we do need to take off for a quick breather, but World News is just